Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Grace, and in my channel I like to document my pregnancy journey as I will be a first-time mom. And in this video I will be sharing with you guys about my miscarriage story. It is a very sensitive topic, something that happened to me last year, and I'll be sharing with you guys what happened, what to expect, and how I was feeling. So if it is overwhelming for you, I totally understand that you can click out of this video, and let's get started. Miscarriage is sincerely one of the hardest, most traumatic experiences that any woman can go through, and it's unfortunately something that a lot of women face today. And the reason why I want to share with you guys is because when I was going through the whole experience and the hardships, I listened to a lot of YouTube testimonials of women who have gone through this whole loss. It is very hard, to say the least, but as I was watching these stories, it did encourage me and give me some hope. So I hope that this video is encouraging for you if you are going through something similar to this. I know it's really difficult and you are not alone in this journey, and if you are going through something like this, please feel free to comment or reach out so I can be praying for you. So currently I'm 20 weeks pregnant, and this is technically my second time getting pregnant because my first time being pregnant was last year, and that was when I miscarried the baby. July 2023 we started trying to conceive, and I have some notes here, by the way, to help me refresh memories and jog through what I want to say. So July, I honestly thought I was going to get pregnant right away. I am in my 20s, and I thought, I don't have PCOS or any ovarian problems or issues, and I considered myself relatively healthy. But I wanted to give you a little bit of background and kind of like the environment that I was in last year. I was working full-time as a healthcare professional, and I was standing for 12 hours, and I had 12-hour shifts throughout the week, and it was a really demanding job. So physically taxing. I would get home really exhausted and just super sore all over, and I just didn't have time or the energy to do anything else, to be honest. And emotionally I was not happy. Like, I was just not happy, and I was working my butt off. When we started trying in July, my plan was to transition from a full-time job to a part-time job by September. So for the month of July, August, and September, I was actually not pregnant. So it wasn't until I transitioned to my part-time job in October when I got pregnant. By the way, these are just observations. I don't know exactly how strong the correlation of stress and the ability to conceive is, but I'm just sharing with you guys my experience and my thoughts on it. So from July to September, we just didn't use any birth control, and we were doing the dance a couple times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, and I was not keeping track at all. Yeah, I just kind of took it casually, but also kind of knew in the back of my head like I could get pregnant anytime now, and I was a little bit anxious. That was about it, and I was working full-time. In October 2023, I ended up being pregnant. I had light brown spotting right before my period was due, and I took the pregnancy test that day when I had the brown spotting, and it ended up being positive. Once I found out I was pregnant, I told my husband, and we scheduled a 8-week ultrasound, which is usually the first appointment that you have with your OBGYN. And I remember the only symptoms that I really had until my ultrasound was lower back pain and exhaustion, and the exhaustion could have just been because of my work. Yeah, sometimes the lower back pain would be super severe. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I didn't have any morning sickness, nausea, or feeling of vomiting, unlike my current pregnancy where I had a lot of that. That could be just because it's a different pregnancy. I don't think that is a miscarriage sign, but I definitely noticed that I had only one one real symptom, which was the lower back pain, until my ultrasound appointment. I was extremely anxious before going into my appointment. At 8 weeks, I did not know what to expect. Obviously, I was like thrilled and nervous and excited, but at the same time, like just really anxious, and I was just so uncertain of what was going to happen. And once the ultrasound images came up, my doctor said immediately, this is probably a miscarriage. So my OBGYN said that based on the ultrasound, there was no viable heartbeats detected, and the size of the fetus was measuring at 7 weeks instead of 8 weeks. And also the image showed a very hazy picture. She said that it should be a solid white color, and immediately I started bawling my eyes out. It was definitely something that I did not see coming, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do after hearing that news. Before we went home, she told me to come back 1 week after to do a double check ultrasound to see if it was a mistake. That 1 week of waiting I remember was so painful. I was just like dreading like to go back, and dreading the fact that like this was happening to me and why it happens to people. I just did not understand, and I was going through a lot of emotions and grieving a lot during that 1 week, but it really felt like forever. And so I went back, and after that 1 week, there was a different OBGYN. Based on the ultrasound, it was measuring 6 weeks instead of 9 weeks. And so it seemed like the fetus was growing smaller and dissipating, and also the color of the white is becoming hazier and hazier until you can barely see it. It was very devastating for us. It was a confirmation that it was a loss. I was able to have a little bit more of a closure going home and move forward with scheduling of my D&C surgery. And so I decided to schedule the D&C surgery a month in advance. All this happened in the month of November of finding out about the miscarriage. I had the D&C surgery scheduled in December, and my preference ideally was not to undergo the surgery, but to naturally let the baby pass. When a miscarriage or silent miscarriage happens, there's blood loss and a lot of bleeding, like heavy bleeding that happens. And I wanted to go through that process instead of having the surgery. So I waited a couple weeks, maybe like 2 weeks, and nothing really happened. I had a lot of cramps and a lot of abdominal pain and lower back pain, and it didn't feel like out of the norm. I kind of felt like, oh, I still feel pregnant. A constant reminder of, guilt, shame, and emotionally it was just really hard. And so I was prescribed Misoprostol, which is a medication used to help contract the uterus. I took that, but it did not work, and I just kind of waited. And so after a few more days of taking the medication, I finally started bleeding. And let me tell you, the bleeding is so traumatic. It's not nowhere compared to having a period. It's like heavy bleeding. I was sitting on the toilet for about an hour and a half, and I was just constantly bleeding. The clots that were coming out were like golf ball sized clots, and initially that's what comes out, and then it's drops of blood. As the clots are coming out, they're kind of like blood clots, so they're huge and heavy. And as it's coming out, I was just feeling so much pain, like because it felt like it was contracting, and my body was naturally like contracting to push out something. And a lot of women say that it's comparable to actually giving birth. So it's nowhere compared to having a period. And it's one of the most traumatic things that I feel like anyone can really go through. I don't know how to describe it, but it is just so heartbreaking, and like emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, it just affects you. I was so lightheaded during the whole time, like during that 1 hour, I had to have my husband like feed me apples, like snacks, because I was losing so much blood and I was lightheaded and dizzy. So after that night, I had to get another ultrasound because my doctor said that she wanted to double check everything had passed. I scheduled another ultrasound with her, and she looked and she saw that there were some tissues that haven't passed all the way. And so she told me I had to get the D&C surgery, unfortunately. One thing I was actually very surprised by was just how, obviously not a lot of doctors are like this, but my doctor she was very professional, but I think a lot of doctors resort to like medicine and surgery to fix your problems, which do help in a lot of cases. But I don't know why, I just expected her to be more emotionally present. And I guess that's why you need therapy, a good therapist for those reasons. Like right after she told me that it is a miscarriage, right away she told me you have like 3 options. Like you either need to get a surgery, take the drug, or you just let it naturally pass. And looking back now, like obviously she was just doing her job, but that's just something that you might be taken aback by, like how I was. Before the D&C surgery, I didn't really have much expectation besides sleeping throughout the whole thing. So they put me under, and after about an hour, I woke up and I was just feeling sleepy and drowsy. I don't remember anything. Basically, my doctor reported that everything looks good and all clear to, try again. And after the surgery, I was definitely more relieved. Like I felt like I had closure, and literally those 2 months were extremely hard. I remember crying every single day, just crying out to God and asking for help and strength. I didn't have a lot of community where I lived, so I'm grateful that this event helped my husband and I make the decision to move closer to our families, so that when we did get pregnant again or wanted to raise a child, they would be there for our support. Not just physical support, but like mentally and emotionally, they all tie in together. And I think that's extremely important. If you're going through something similar like this, I would also suggest therapy. I was considering it heavily, and I had a friend who was a therapist, and she helped kind of navigate a little bit through that whole experience. End of December, my husband and I moved closer to our family, and that's kind of like when my moving on process started, and it became so much better. We ended up traveling overseas as well for a month, and that has added to the healing process. I ended up changing my career to something that was less demanding, physically demanding, and where I was sitting down and doing something that makes me happier. And right now I am 20 weeks pregnant, and I feel like I haven't felt like myself and just being like happy and calm and relieved since like last year and the year before that as well. Looking back throughout the whole process, I realized my dominant feeling was guilt and shame. I feel like miscarriage is something that's not talked about a lot, for a good reason, because it's hard. It's very difficult to talk about it, especially with your friends or family members who have never gone through something like this. I felt like my body was just failing on me, and it was like a reminder every time that I could not have the ability to, like every woman should be able to do. And I felt like it was my fault for being in situations that was extremely stressful and affecting and like damaging my body. And like looking back now, I realized like I could have taken care of my body a little bit better. But I just want to encourage you, like, don't carry the burden of blaming yourself, feeling guilty or shameful about this. I think it starts with openly communicating with people that have undergone through something similar, and through empathy and know that these hard times can only build you to be stronger, and don't let that burden break you. I remember some doctors told me, especially the Korean doctors, they told me that the reason why I miscarried was because I didn't keep my uterus warm, and that means blood circulation and like exercising enough and moving around enough. But I realized that is not true because I was walking a lot. I wasn't drinking cold water or ice water or anything like that. I think that's just a myth. Doctors saying that it's your fault for not keeping your uterus warm enough for the fetus to grow is baloney. Although I do know Oriental medicine and acupuncture, like those things can help with that, but the core reason for what happened to me was really, in my opinion, stress, just not taking care of my body well. And a lot of times there are no reasons. Like doctors will tell me that it's due to chromosomal abnormalities, and that is the most common reason, and I do sincerely agree with that. Like sometimes you just don't know what your body is going to do. Like even if you are the healthiest, I know women who had miscarriages, whether it was their first miscarriage or with their second child or third child and so on. Miscarriages are just so common, unfortunately, and the reason is, a lot of times it's just unknown. And I guess I had to accept the fact that, like, in the end, I won't know the real reason why I miscarried my baby, but I can only do my best. A lot of people ask when is a good time to start trying again. We started trying again after about 4 months. So we traveled overseas for a month and then we moved. So we were pretty busy and finding new jobs. We wanted to get settled first and try again. And that took about 4 months. There really is no right time. My previous doctor, she told me that you can start trying literally 2 weeks after the surgery, but I kind of wanted my body to get back to the rhythm and have my regular menstruation cycles, get used to it, and then start trying again. I don't think there is like a right time. It just depends on you and your husband or your spouse. Definitely go through the grieving process and make sure that you're emotionally and mentally ready as you can be. You don't want to put yourself in a state where you make mistakes or regrets thinking that there could have been a better timing. So for my current pregnancy, things that I did differently from my previous, I moved, so I was in a completely new setting. I was in a better place, much better place physically, surrounded by community and support from my family. And I also made sure that I was emotionally ready and spiritually ready, and ready as in just being in a much better place than before. And I was not working 12-hour shifts and standing all day and being super physically active. I was trying to set like a calm rhythm to my lifestyle and balance. So I did change my diet as well. I was cutting out a lot of carbs and taking in a lot more nutrition and looking up a better diet for me as well. Another thing that I did differently was I kept track of my menstruation cycle and my ovulation cycle. So I did buy those ovulation test kits that you could get at pretty much any like retail pharmacy store. I got mine at Walgreens and I started testing the first month that we started trying again, and I got pregnant right away. You want to do the dance as frequently as you can, but closer to the ovulation period, because that window is only 12 to 24 hours and the chances are greater if you do that. When I did keep track, I noticed that my menstruation days and my cycles were actually like shorter and longer each month. I always thought it was gonna be like exactly 28 days, but it's not, and that's just something that I've learned throughout the process. Yeah, so it's been exactly 1 year since we started trying, and this journey has been difficult but incredible and rewarding at the same time. It helped build our marriage and made me to become more resilient and more appreciative of life and empathetic towards the mothers that are going through this and have gone through this, and all moms deserve so much credit for doing what they're doing. If you're going through a miscarriage, please comment and share with us if you feel comfortable. I would love to pray for you and encourage you. If you have gone through something similar and you have a testimony to share, please also share below, and I am rooting for you, and I'll see you guys in my next video.